in the life of a man who had proven himself to be a master of science and technology. When a brilliant career seemed to have reached its peak, a special moment arrived and changed everything. Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and SpaceX, one of the greatest names in modern technology, never expected that he would have a profound spiritual experience that would overturn every definition he ever had of success and purpose in life. One evening, in the silence of a church, a strange encounter took place, and it was with none other than Jesus Christ. The words he spoke to Musk not only changed his life but also opened up a new path full of meaning and hope for millions of people around the world. Would Elon continue on the path the world expected from him? Or would he embark on a different journey, guided by the spiritual values that he bestowed upon him? Let's explore this incredible story, where faith meets creativity, and belief in something greater than oneself. The heavy wooden door creaked loudly as Elon Musk pushed it open, the sound breaking the serene stillness of the church, a tranquil space he never imagined himself entering. The dim light of the evening filtered through the stained glass windows, casting faint patterns on the cold stone floor. The scene around him was peaceful, but inside him, unease was rising with every passing moment. Elon stepped over the threshold, feeling the cool, crisp air inside. He could distinctly hear the sound of his shoes echoing in the vast space, each step ringing out like a bell in the oppressive silence. This was not a place he frequented, a place where inventions and technological races took precedence. But today, he stood here, in a setting unrelated to anything he had ever known. For the first time in a long while, he felt adrift. Why was he here? No clear reason. A vague urge, like an invisible string, had pulled him to this place, to this moment. He walked slowly, his steps heavy, his mind spinning. The faint scent of incense lingered in the air, mingling with the cold stillness of this expansive space. Stopping, his eyes inadvertently rested on the statue of Jesus placed on the altar. The light streaming through the stained glass windows rendered the statue mystical, his eyes deep and full of patience, as if piercing through every thought, every emotion within him. A strange and peculiar feeling surged in Elon, not reverence, but fear, an inexplicable compulsion. "Why do I feel this way?" Elon muttered, unaware that this question was not merely curiosity, but a plea for help from the depths of his soul. He felt as though he was being laid bare, not by theories or numbers, but by something more delicate, more mysterious. Silently, a heavy sensation suddenly enveloped him, as if the air in the church had thickened, making it hard to breathe. Unnamed doubts swirled wildly in his mind. Suddenly, he heard a gentle voice resonate in his thoughts. "Do you truly believe in yourself, Elon?" The voice was not loud but carried immense power. It was tender yet challenging. The words were not just a question but felt like an awakening. Elon felt a subtle yet irresistible pressure, as though an invisible hand was gripping his heart, refusing to let him escape. He turned, looking around the room, but all he saw were empty pews and long shadows stretching out from the dark corners. There was no one. Yet the sense of a presence was so overwhelming that he could not deny it. "You are not alone," the voice spoke again, this time clearer, as if it emerged from within him, touching his heart. Elon stood motionless, his breath heavy. The bewildering sensation left him unable to comprehend why he felt this way. He couldn't understand what was happening, yet the feeling was undeniable. "What are you searching for, Elon?" The words felt like an invitation, a challenge he could not avoid. He stood, his eyes sweeping over the statue, as if waiting for it to reveal the answer to his own question. "Why are you so uncertain? Why do you doubt what you've built?" "God," Elon whispered softly, his voice catching in his throat. "If you're really here, please show me what I must do." Nothing changed. No light burst forth. No sound broke the silence. Yet the stillness was not ordinary. It was heavy, as if the entire space bore the weight of unspoken questions and unresolved doubts. The faint light from the overhead lamp enveloped everything in a hazy mist, making the space feel vague and cold. Elon stood still, his eyes fixed on the cross on the altar. The statue of Jesus, with a face full of faith, seemed almost alive, glowing in the dim light like an aura beyond his understanding. He felt as if his body was melting, drawn by an invisible force toward the altar. His legs grew heavy, each step feeling as if met with unseen resistance. Cold sweat ran down his back as he took one step at a time, his trembling hands gripping the edge of the altar, struggling to regain some balance. You've spent your entire life searching for answers. But there are questions without answers. The voice echoed in his mind again, this time clearer, as if it penetrated every corner of his thoughts. The voice didn't come from the outside but seemed to arise from the depths of his soul, sending tremors through every cell in his body. Elon paused, dropping to his knees as the sensation intensified. He placed a hand on his chest, feeling the irregular beats of his heart. What is the true answer? Elon whispered, his lips moving as if unwilling to let himself hear the words. This time, there was no immediate response. Instead, a heavy feeling enveloped him. A strange warmth began spreading from his chest throughout his body, like an invisible, intangible fire burning away the layers of armor encasing his soul. He felt himself being stripped of the defenses he had believed he could never remove. You have reached great heights, the voice continued with an unsettling calmness. But you've forgotten what is simple. Near. Right at your feet. The words hit his mind like a tidal wave. Elon raised his head, but his vision blurred, as though those words had exposed something he had tried to hide. He thought about everything he had built, the groundbreaking technologies, the monumental progress, but beneath all those achievements was a longing that had never been satisfied. How can this be? Elon shook his head, his eyes filled with confusion and inner conflict. I've accomplished everything others can only dream of. What I've done surpasses all expectations. The voice, unwavering yet gentle, like a breeze passing through treetops, replied, You are doubting your purpose, doubting what has guided you, doubting yourself. Those words felt like a jolt to his mind. Elon felt as though he was being exposed to a truth he wasn't ready to face. The secrets he had buried deep within were being unveiled bit by bit. The emotions he had long tried to suppress now surged, intense and uncontrollable. He sat there, feeling as though time itself had stopped. How could one describe this moment? Everything seemed to fade into a hazy stillness, leaving only the soft light in the room, surrounded by a silence he couldn't break. He knelt, unable to discern whether minutes or hours had passed. It was a space that defied definition, and Elon found himself sinking into it, as though being drawn into an infinite depth. A voice rang out, gentle yet distinct, pulling him from the drift of his thoughts. You have witnessed your extraordinary creativity, but you have never truly understood its essence. Elon lifted his head, his eyes filled with confusion. I've created things people couldn't even imagine before, he said, his voice uncertain, as if seeking validation for himself. I've brought ideas from my mind into the world. I've changed people's lives. The voice returned, unchanged, but it carried a clarity that he could not comprehend. You've built bridges between people and the future, but you've never seen the one who drew the map. Those words made him pause. His heart pounded, and a vague confusion settled within him. I don't understand, Elon said, his voice catching. I've tried my best. I've done what I thought was great. So why is it not enough? The voice was gentle, yet there was an unwavering firmness hidden within. Everything you've done holds value, but what you failed to realize is that you are merely an instrument in a greater plan. Elon felt as if a great wave had just crashed over him. He turned his head, trying to escape the strange feeling rising in his chest. So what else am I supposed to do? He asked, his voice filled with confusion. What is it that I'm missing? But the answer didn't come immediately. The light in the room seemed to shift, becoming brighter, then emanating a soft warmth. What you lack is not capability. It is humility, the voice replied, as gentle as a breeze. Suddenly, Elon sensed something different in this space. It was a grandeur he couldn't understand but could feel on a deep, inexplicable level. He looked back at the painting once more, and for a fleeting moment, the eyes of Jesus seemed to follow him, not with judgment, but with a gaze that was tender and forgiving. Elon felt his heart tighten. I am not the creator, the voice continued, as the space around him grew warmer than ever. You are merely a part of a long chain. Everything you have done reflects the gifts I have bestowed upon you. But you've used them for yourself instead of honoring their source. Each word felt like a stone dropping into a still pond, sending ripples through Elon's mind. He wanted to argue, but he couldn't. These words felt like an awakening, a fresh wind blowing through his reasoning. Everything he had done, everything he had built, could not be as simple as he had thought. He was a part of something far greater, and even in his successes, he had never truly recognized the origin of it all. Elon felt a strange emptiness in his heart as he tried to find answers for himself. What am I doing here? He whispered, his voice soft but filled with bewilderment. That simple question carried with it a plea he couldn't put into words. Don't look far, the strange voice echoed, like a gentle breeze weaving through every corner of his soul. You must find yourself in the things yet to be discovered. You must see beyond what you already know. Suddenly, the warmth surrounding him grew, like a powerful energy radiating from his heart. Yet this warmth no longer brought comfort as it had before. In that moment, the space around him began to transform. He was no longer in the quiet, solemn room. The stone walls and wooden benches slowly dissolved, replaced by an immense, boundless space, shining so brightly he couldn't see where it ended. The overwhelming sensation took his breath away, and he felt himself being drawn into a dimension beyond everything he had ever known. He began to see strange images. Each scene was a fragment of memory, each person a part of the memories he had left behind in this world. The people he had helped, the changes he had brought to their lives. But those images didn't stop there. They gradually changed. And this time, there were faces he had never met, lives he had never touched. They were the ones left in the shadows of the progress he pursued, the fates he had yet to alter. A wave of sorrow surged within him like a fierce tide, and he felt as though he was bearing a burden too immense. He fell to his knees, tears quietly streaming down his face. I just wanted to make a difference, he choked. I thought I was doing the right thing. The voice returned, this time with an extraordinary gentleness yet filled with gravity. You have done many good things, but you have only scratched the surface. Your journey is far longer and more intricate than you imagine. The lights surrounding him slowly dimmed, and the space around him began to shift back into familiar sights. The church, with its ancient stone walls, reappeared before his eyes. Yet, it no longer felt the same. The certainty and peace he once felt were gone. In their place, he felt a heavy yet profound pressure, a calling, a reminder, as if the entire universe was urging him to awaken. He looked around, but no answer revealed itself. How am I supposed to understand all of this? He asked, his voice filled with confusion and unease. Because you have been chosen, the voice responded, gentle but firm, an affirmation impossible to refute. Elon stepped back, his mind spinning with bewilderment, unable to believe what had just unfolded. He was a man who had always stood firm on logic and truth, who had learned and grown from proven theories and principles applicable to life. But now, standing before the cross. He felt something rising within him, something profound, unexplainable, yet deeply real. Impossible, he murmured, gripping the base of the cross tightly, his eyes welling with tears. I did everything I thought was right. Why is it still not enough? The entire church seemed to suddenly transform. It was no longer a place of stillness but overflowed with a gentle sensation, as if the universe itself was embracing him, consoling him. And then, the space shattered with a voice so tender yet so clear that it could not be denied. Because you were born to do something far greater. Those words echoed in his heart like a powerful blow, leaving him breathless. Despite their weight, they brought a strange sense of peace, as if they were the missing piece in his life, a part of himself he had never realized. He fell to his knees, his hands trembling, struggling to remain grounded in this incomprehensible moment. Who was speaking to him? And what was this? Something far greater. He could not stop asking himself these questions. Silence surrounded him. But now it was no longer still. It became alive, brimming with an energy he had never felt before. It was as if he had stepped into another realm, where everything was clear yet impossibly complex. His hands tightened slightly, feeling a warm flame gradually igniting in his heart, spreading through his body. He tried to stand up, but his legs felt unsteady as if they no longer belonged to him. He looked back at the cross, expecting it to glow again. But no, the image of Christ now remained still, like a silent companion, gazing at him with calm patience. The entire space of the church stayed quiet. But it was no longer lonely. A presence enveloped him, as if waiting for him to uncover what he must do. His footsteps echoed in the church hall, but not like those of someone searching. Instead, they were the steps of a person being pulled forward, not knowing where to go, only knowing he couldn't stand still any longer. The confusion and questioning in him surged like waves, propelling him into an inner journey he couldn't stop. When he reached the door, his hand paused on the handle. He felt an invisible force holding him back. Another voice, like a reminder, resonated from deep within him. You are not the creator, you are the tool. Remember that. The feeling was as powerful as a slap, forcing him to confront himself. He looked back at the vision he had just experienced, the gifts bestowed upon him, and the guilt over how he had used them. But was there still time to change? A wave of emotion surged within him. He turned back, his steps heavy, as if each step carried the weight of awakening. Approaching the altar once more, he sat down, his hands clasped tightly together. For the first time in years, he felt the need to pray. Not a habitual prayer, but a genuine plea from the depths of his heart. What do I do now? He whispered, his voice trembling. Yet, no matter how small, his question echoed powerfully in the space. How can I change everything? Silence enveloped him again. But this time, it didn't bring emptiness. It felt like a waiting presence, offering him a call to action that he couldn't avoid. And then, in that serene moment, a vision emerged in his mind, not with blinding light but with clarity in every fragment of life. He saw himself standing amidst a crowd, not as a tech tycoon but as a man with a message, sharing his experiences. He wasn't doing it for fame or personal glory but for other hearts, for lives that would be touched. He saw himself as a flame spreading hope, creating a wave that would never cease. The moonlight softly illuminated the empty street as Elon's footsteps echoed in the quiet night. Walking out of the church, the wooden door closed behind him, leaving a subdued sound like an abrupt ending. The world outside was so still it felt as if no one existed. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves, whispering a reminder only he could hear. Elon stopped, standing for a long moment on the steps, his eyes fixed on the dark street in the distance, a strange feeling enveloping him. The image from the church still burned like a flame in his mind. He was no longer an inventor, no longer a billionaire with grand projects. He realized that what he had just felt in his heart was a completely different challenge. A challenge not born of competition or the desire for success, but from something he had never dared to face: faith. The feeling unsettled him. How could he abandon everything he had built his entire life just to step onto a path where the outcome was unknown? He bowed his head, closing his eyes for a moment. And a question quietly broke within him. Can I do this? There was no answer. Only silence enveloped him like a heavy cloak. The sounds from his surroundings seemed to vanish. And in that moment, he felt an inexplicable presence. A gentle comfort like a warm wave soothing his heart. But it also made him feel small, like a grain of sand in an immense ocean. He could no longer fight himself. He took a deep, slow breath, as if he were about to embark on a long journey without knowing what lay ahead. If this is the path I need to take, please show me the way, he whispered, his voice faltering. But there was something very genuine in every word he spoke. The prayer was not a plea but an affirmation. He didn't need to fully understand right now. He just needed enough faith to take the first step. A strange sensation rose within him. Not certainty, but a sense of peace. As if this choice was the right one. When he opened his eyes, nothing had changed. The streetlights were still dim. The wind still lightly rustled the leaves. But everything seemed clearer, as though an invisible force was guiding him. Though everything was far from perfect, at least he no longer felt alone. Elon stood up, brushed his hands, and walked. His first steps were hesitant. But soon, each step seemed more determined, as if he was walking toward a goal he could not yet see. He didn't have all the answers, but at least he knew he had found a new direction. His phone vibrated, a signal from his old world. But this time, he didn't rush to look at it. He knew the messages, the calls from the company, or the important appointments no longer held the same meaning as before. He didn't need more achievements or recognition. What he needed now was a profound change, a transformation he couldn't find in past victories. He glanced at the phone screen but then slipped it back into his pocket without hesitation. The projects, the presentations, those things were important. But not at this moment. He knew the road ahead would be full of challenges. But for the first time, he felt ready to face it all, not because he had all the answers, but because he was prepared to move forward without needing to understand everything right away. Elon walked through the dark hallway, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Though the outside world was bathed in the peace of the late night, within him was a raging storm. The whispers in the church still lingered in his mind, not just as prayers but as voices calling out to his heart. He felt he was no longer just a man chasing success but part of something much greater. And that was a truth he couldn't ignore. As he entered his house, the first light of dawn began to paint the sky in soft pink hues. His home, wrapped in quiet stillness, was the same as it had always been. There were no noises, no calls reminding him of work, only the silence of the space. Normally, he would dive straight into his tasks. But today, he passed it all by and headed directly to a room he rarely paid attention to. He sat down in an old armchair near the window, his gaze fixed on the small patch of sky visible between the concrete structures of the city. The phone in his hand felt cold, like a mirror reflecting the entire world waiting for his response. He knew this decision could change everything. But he also understood this was a moment he couldn't turn away from. Up until now, everything he had done was guided by reason. But this time, it was something different. He couldn't explain it with numbers, couldn't reason it with science. This was a step he could only take if he followed his heart. Could he summon the courage to face this truth, even if it meant everything might crumble? The image of the church appeared in his mind again, and he no longer saw himself as a man with a company or inventions. He only saw himself as a man. A human being with a heart full of unanswered questions. He was no longer just someone building machines, he was someone who had to rebuild his own faith. Opening his phone, his fingers swiped across the screen without any clear purpose. He knew where he needed to start but wasn't sure he could convince anyone. The world was accustomed to the image of Elon Musk as sharp, cold, and pragmatic. So how could he talk to them about things that couldn't be measured by any calculation? And then, he began. The words emerged slowly, as if they were gradually finding their place. Each sentence was not carefully thought out, he simply let them flow from his heart. That evening, when I stepped into the church, I was just a confused man. Questions without answers swirled in my mind. But when I left, I found something I never expected: peace. A clarity that no success had ever brought me. I heard a voice. Not from my mind, but deep within my heart. It told me I was born to do something far greater than anything I had done. What I have cannot compare to the true purpose I need to pursue. His fingers stopped, and the entire space around him grew eerily still. He wondered if the world would accept this confession. Would they understand him? Or would it all just seem like madness in their eyes? But another strange feeling rose within him, and he realized that it no longer mattered. This wasn't about him. This was about a message. A mission far greater than himself. With his resolve firm, he pressed send. And then, the message flew away, surpassing all the boundaries he had ever set for himself. A thrill coursed through him as he leaned back in the chair, the gentle morning light slowly filling the room and softly touching his skin. He didn't know what the future would hold, but for the first time in his life, he felt at ease with that uncertainty. Because this wasn't about him, it was about something far greater than anything else. And that was all he needed to know. Elon sat in his office, his eyes fixed on the computer screen. The first reactions to his post were coming in, line by line. At first, just a few people. And then, after a while, the comments began to pile up like waves. Some applauded, some doubted, but a select few expressed a sincerity that tightened his chest. Messages of gratitude, shared worries, and personal stories that he had never thought would be made public appeared before him. He felt something entirely different in those words. It seemed as though his story, though imperfect, had touched something deep within other souls. Everything felt strange, yet deeply convincing. Certainly, this wasn't just an ordinary post. It was a journey he had not prepared for. But now he found himself walking that path. Each day, the number of responses grew. His supporters increased in number. But alongside them came doubts and even ridicule. Questions about his motives hovered in the air. But Elon refused to let them bother him. He could only move forward, knowing that his story was not merely a personal sharing but part of something much larger. Something he didn't fully understand yet. Gradually, Elon began to open up more. He no longer hesitated to share his experiences during interviews. But not as the inventive genius people usually saw. He was a man who had walked through the door of transformation. He talked about the long nights spent wrestling with thoughts and feelings, the sensation of stepping into the church under the rain, and how the faint glow of the candles dispelled the darkness in his mind. He didn't speak of religion in the traditional sense, but of connection with the world, of belief in the greater values we can all bring to this life. The public's reactions were unpredictable. Those who embraced his story saw it as a groundbreaking shift, while others remained entrenched in skepticism. But Elon couldn't allow himself to falter. He had overcome too many challenges to give up easily. Then, one day, he found himself on the stage of a large auditorium, the spotlight shining on him. The crowd wasn't there to celebrate a new invention, they had come simply to hear him speak, to understand the journey he had been on. His eyes swept across the faces in the audience, not searching for applause but trying to feel that they were truly listening. He didn't start speaking immediately. He took a deep breath, as if trying to hold on to every moment. Everyone. I'm not here to teach you anything, Elon began, his voice gentle but firm. I'm here to tell you about the journey I've been on, about the things I've learned. I no longer believe in formulas or theories. I've realized that each of us has a purpose, a mission far greater than we imagine. The audience fell silent. Every eye locked on him. Elon continued, his words unadorned but filled with sincerity and strength. He ended, not with a grand conclusion, but simply with a word of thanks. The applause rolled in like a wave, but he paid no mind to it. He knew that the most important thing wasn't the praise, it was that he had shared something truly meaningful. When he left the stage, a strange peace enveloped him. Though he didn't know what the future would bring, he felt ready to face any challenge. He was not alone on this journey, and that was all he needed to know. At night, in the quiet room, he knelt by the bed. Once again, a prayer came to him, not from some vague place, but from his own heart. Lord, I don't know where this path will lead me, but I believe you will show the way. Please help me to stay faithful, and give me the strength to keep going, no matter how difficult it may be. Amen. As he stood up, he felt an invisible strength filling him. The next journey awaited, and he was ready to walk it. Continuing his new journey, Elon no longer felt like a lone person searching for answers. Though he faced many challenges, his steps began to lead him toward a clearer, deeper purpose. Every time he shared his journey, those who listened could feel the strength, not from a theory or an invention, but from a profound change deep within his soul. In another large seminar, where many leaders, scientists, and influential people gathered, Elon entered the meeting room, not with new questions about technology, but with a very simple yet powerful message. We cannot change the world unless we first change ourselves. He didn't want to be the one standing at the top, the one who always had the answers to every problem. He just wanted to be the one to spark a flame, to inspire others to change together. People paid more attention to him than ever before. Not because of his new products, but because of the transformation within him. He was no longer Elon Musk as everyone once knew him, the creator, the dreamer of great things. He had become a new person, an inspiration, someone who had strong belief in the goodness in each of us. His message was simple but profound. If you can change one thing in your life, it is the change from within. One afternoon, while looking out the wide window, Elon reflected on everything he had gone through. The moments in the church, the times standing before an audience, the late nights praying. All of them were like bright stars in a dark sky, guiding him through countless challenges. He knew he was no longer just an inventor. He was an inspiration, someone who ignited hope for those still hesitating in their own lives. He looked back at it all, from the first moments when he shared his story, to the months that followed, where he walked not for passion or success, but for a higher purpose. He realized that, whether the world changed or not, he had found his own path. The end of the story was a reminder of growth, of rising again and again despite all the challenges. Elon, the man who had broken through his own walls, now knew that the road he had walked, though not always smooth, always led to truth, peace of mind, and a bright future. With his eyes fixed on the horizon, Elon silently said, "Thank you for the challenges, for the opportunities to grow. Thank you for teaching me that sometimes walking alone is not loneliness, but walking to find myself." And then, as a perfect ending to a long story, he understood that this journey was never about the final destination. It was about the steps, the lessons, and about constantly moving forward, no matter the circumstances. If this story has touched your heart and you want to explore more inspiring stories, Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss the latest videos. Let's share meaningful moments together and create an inspiring community, where each story brings hope and motivation to all of us. Hit like if you enjoyed this video and share it with your friends to spread the beautiful messages. Note: this is a fictional story created for entertainment purposes and to deliver meaningful messages. All events and characters in the video are products of imagination. We are not responsible for any real-life events. Thank you for watching and being with us.